The transport ship dropped Zixathera 3 miles above the planet's surface. The biomimetic suit wrapped around their natural form began to change as they fell through the thin atmosphere. Bones shifted, skin color altered, and their 4 arms merged into the standard 2 that humans possessed. By the time the personal gravity field slowed their descent to a gentle landing in the wooded area outside the city, Zixathera looked exactly like a human female in her early 30s. The transformation always felt strange. The hegemony's biomimetic technology was perfect, but wearing another species' form never felt natural. Zixathera touched their new face with unfamiliar fingers and began walking toward the lights of the human settlement. The mission was simple. Spend 1 rotation observing human technology and society, file reports on their military capabilities, confirm that these primitives posed no threat to the coming invasion. The hegemony had been watching Earth for 50 cycles, and every scout report said the same thing: humans were backward. They still burned fossil fuels, used primitive electronics, and fought wars with chemical explosives. Zixathera reached the edge of the city as the local star began to rise. The humans called this place Denver. According to their intelligence files, it contained one of their major aerospace research facilities. If humans had any advanced technology at all, it would be here. The streets were already busy with humans hurrying to their daily tasks. Zixathera watched them carefully. They drove vehicles that burned liquid fuel and carried small communication devices that seemed decades behind hegemony's standard equipment. Everything matched the intelligence reports perfectly. Using forged identification documents created by hegemony computers, Zixathera applied for a position at Northfield Aerospace. The interview was almost too easy. The human manager, a thin man named Roberts, barely looked at their fake credentials before offering them a job as a research assistant. "You'll be working with Dr. Chen's team," Roberts explained, leading them through a building filled with outdated computer terminals and metal desks. "We're always looking for bright people in our material science division." Dr. Sarah Chen was a small woman with dark hair and intelligent eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She shook Zixathera's hand firmly and smiled. "Welcome to the team, Dr. A," Chen said. "I hope you're ready to work hard. We have some very interesting projects here." Zixathera spent their first week observing and learning. The humans around them worked on what appeared to be standard aerospace technology. They tested materials for aircraft frames, designed more efficient engines, and discussed improvements to their primitive rocket systems. Everything seemed normal, but small things began to bother Zixathera. During lunch breaks, the human scientists would sometimes stop talking when they noticed Zixathera approaching. They would smile and change the subject to something harmless, like the weather or sports. At first, Zixathera thought this was normal human social behavior, but it happened too often to be coincidence. Then there were the computer systems. While most of the equipment looked appropriately primitive, Zixathera occasionally glimpsed screens that showed data far more complex than anything humans should possess. When they tried to get a closer look, the screens would quickly change to show simple spreadsheets or basic design programs. The security was another puzzle. For a supposedly low-level research facility, there were many guards and cameras. Entire sections of the building required special access cards that even Dr. Chen didn't seem to have. When Zixathera asked about these restricted areas, Dr. Chen would give vague answers about classified government contracts. "Nothing too exciting," she would say with a casual smile. "Just boring military stuff. Stronger armor plating, more efficient fuel systems. You know how the government loves to classify everything." But Zixathera's enhanced hearing sometimes picked up sounds from those restricted areas, strange humming noises that reminded them of hegemony power systems. Occasional vibrations that felt like advanced machinery operating far below the building. 2 weeks into the assignment, Zixathera decided to file their first report. They found a secure location in their apartment and activated the quantum communication device hidden in their belongings. "This is Scout Unit 7749 reporting from Target Planet 3. They transmitted to the Hegemony command ship waiting at the edge of the solar system. Initial observations confirm previous intelligence. Human technology remains primitive. No advanced weapon systems detected. No evidence of spacefaring military capability beyond basic chemical rockets. Recommend proceeding with invasion timeline. As planned, the response came back immediately. Acknowledged, Scout 7749. Continue observations. Next report in 10 local days. But even as they sent the report, Zixthera felt uncertain. Something was wrong here, though they couldn't identify exactly what. The feeling grew stronger the next day when Dr. Chen asked them to help with a new project. We're testing some experimental materials, she explained, leading Zixthera to a laboratory they hadn't seen before. I need someone to record temperature and pressure readings while we run some stress tests. The laboratory contained equipment that made Zixthera's skin crawl, not because it looked dangerous, but because it looked familiar. The metal testing apparatus bore a strong resemblance to hegemony stress testing equipment. The computer interfaces displayed symbols that seemed almost like simplified versions of hegemony mathematical notation. Dr. Chen handed them a clipboard and pointed to a metal sample mounted in the testing machine. This is a new alloy we've been developing, she said. We think it might be suitable for extreme temperature applications. Zixthera watched as Dr. Chen activated the testing sequence. The machine subjected the metal sample to temperatures that should have melted any known human alloy, but the sample remained solid. Not only solid, but completely unchanged. Impressive, Zixthera said carefully. How did you develop this alloy? Dr. Chen paused for just a moment before answering. Oh, you know how research works. Years of trial and error, building on previous discoveries, standing on the shoulders of giants, as they say. But her tone was too casual, too practiced, like she had given this same non-answer many times before. That evening, Zixthera decided to investigate further, using their enhanced agility and night vision. They returned to the Northfield facility after dark. Security was lighter than expected, almost as if the building wasn't as important as it pretended to be. They made their way to the restricted sections they had noticed earlier. The locks on the doors were more sophisticated than they appeared, but Zixthera's tools could handle them. They slipped inside and found themselves in a corridor that led deep underground. The humming sound was stronger here, and there was something else, a faint ozone smell that reminded them of hegemony energy weapons. Zixthera followed the corridor downward, moving carefully and listening for any signs of human guards. The deeper they went, the more advanced the surroundings became. The primitive human architecture gave way to smooth, clean walls lined with technology that definitely shouldn't exist on this planet. They reached a large door marked with symbols that were almost definitely based on hegemony mathematical principles. Through the small window in the door, Zixthera could see a vast chamber filled with machinery that made their blood run cold. Anti-gravity generators, quantum processing units, energy weapon testing arrays, all of it clearly based on hegemony technology, but somehow improved and refined beyond what the hegemony itself possessed. And working among all this advanced equipment were humans. Dozens of them, operating the machinery with casual expertise as if they had been using such technology for years. Zixthera stepped back from the window, their mind racing. This changed everything. The humans weren't primitive at all. They were far more advanced than any intelligence report had suggested. But how? And more importantly, what did it mean for the coming invasion? They needed to get back to their apartment and send an urgent report to command. But as they turned to leave, they heard footsteps in the corridor behind them. I was wondering when you'd find your way down here, said a familiar voice. Zixthera spun around to see Dr. Chen approaching, no longer wearing her friendly smile. We need to talk, Dr. Chen said. Zixthera's first instinct was to run. Their biomimetic suit could handle basic human strength, but if they revealed their true capabilities, the mission would be compromised. Instead, they tried to look confused and innocent. Dr. Chen? What? Are you doing here so late? They began. Looking around where you shouldn't be, Dr. Chen finished. Just like the other three before you. The words hit Zixthera like a physical blow. Other three? Dr. Chen knew exactly what they were. I don't know what you mean, Zixthera said, still trying to maintain their cover. Dr. Chen pulled out a small device that looked like a human tablet computer. She touched the screen and suddenly Zixthera felt their biomimetic suit beginning to malfunction. The human disguise flickered, revealing patches of their natural gray skin underneath. Biomimetic technology is impressive, Dr. Chen said calmly. But it has weaknesses. Electromagnetic fields in specific frequencies can disrupt the neural pathways that control the transformation. Zixthera stopped pretending. Their suit fully deactivated, revealing their true form. Tall, gray-skinned, with large dark eyes and 4 arms. They reached for the emergency beacon that would signal for extraction, but Dr. Chen held up her hand. I wouldn't do that if I were you. We've been jamming your communication since the day you arrived. Any signal you send gets redirected through our systems first. How long have you known? Zixthera asked. About you specifically? From the moment you walked into the building? About your species in general? About 40 years. Dr. Chen gestured for Zixthera to follow her deeper into the underground facility. Against their better judgment, Zixthera complied. They needed to understand what was happening here. The first scout arrived in 1985, Dr. Chen explained as they walked. Poor thing landed right in the middle of a military training exercise. We captured him alive and learned quite a lot. The second one was smarter, managed to infiltrate society for almost a year before we caught him. The third one we actually let complete their mission and return home, but not before we modified their communication equipment. They passed through several security checkpoints, each one more advanced than anything Zixthera had seen in hegemony facilities. Human guards nodded respectfully to Dr. Chen, but Zixthera noticed they were carrying weapons that definitely weren't human in origin. You've been feeding false information to our command, Zixthera realized. For decades, Dr. Chen confirmed. Every scout that came here sent back reports confirming that humanity was primitive and defenseless. We made sure of that. They entered a vast chamber that took Zixthera's breath away. The space was filled with spacecraft that combined human and alien design elements in ways that shouldn't have been possible. Sleek fighters that moved without visible propulsion systems. Massive ships with weapons arrays that looked more advanced than anything in the hegemony fleet. How? Zixthera whispered. Humans are very good at learning, Dr. Chen said. Every piece of alien technology we captured, we studied. Every scout we interrogated taught us something new. Your people aren't the only ones who've been watching Earth, you know. We've had contact with species from 12 different civilizations over the past 50 years. She led Zixthera to an observation platform overlooking the construction bays. Hundreds of humans worked alongside beings that Zixthera recognized as members of other species, some that the hegemony had conquered, others that had successfully resisted. The Zilani taught us advanced metallurgy, Dr. Chen continued. The Korth shared their quantum computing technology. The Vex showed us how to manipulate gravity fields. And your people, well, your people gave us the best gift of all. What? Gift? Time. Every false report your scouts sent back convinced your leaders that they could take their time planning this invasion. 40 years of preparation time that we used very wisely. Zixthera felt sick. The entire intelligence operation had been compromised from the beginning. Worse, they had been actively helping the humans prepare for war. Why are you telling me this? They asked. Because you have a choice to make, Dr. Chen said. We know your invasion fleet is already on its way. Our deep space sensors detected them 3 months ago. You can continue working for us, feeding information back to your commanders that will help us defend Earth, or... She didn't finish the sentence, but Zixthera understood the implication. You want me to betray my own people. I want you to help prevent a massacre, Dr. Chen corrected. Your fleet is expecting to fight primitive humans with chemical weapons and simple electronics. Instead, they're going to face a united defense force with technology that surpasses anything the hegemony has ever seen. The only question is whether we can end this quickly with minimal casualties or whether it becomes a long, bloody war. Dr. Chen showed Zixthera to a comfortable quarters that looked like a human apartment, but contained amenities designed for their species' needs. Think about it, she said. You have until tomorrow to decide. Alone in the room, Zixthera tried to process everything they had learned. The humans had been playing a game far more complex than anyone in the hegemony had imagined. They hadn't just been hiding their technology. They had been actively working to ensure the hegemony would underestimate them. But what impressed Zixthera most was the cooperation they had witnessed. Multiple species working together, sharing knowledge and resources. In the hegemony, conquered species were forced to serve or destroyed. The humans seemed to have created something different, a genuine alliance based on mutual benefit. Zixthera activated their communication device knowing it was compromised, but hoping to learn more about how the humans were intercepting their signals. As expected, the device appeared to work normally, but subtle delays in the transmission suggested their messages were being processed and modified before being sent. "This is Scout Unit 7749, they transmitted. "Continuing surveillance. No change in human capabilities detected. Invasion timeline remains optimal." But even as they sent the false report, Zixthera was making their decision. They had seen enough to know that the hegemony was walking into a trap. The question was whether they would help spring it or try to warn their people about what was really waiting for them. The next morning, Dr. Chen returned with breakfast and a proposition. "I've been authorized to offer you something," she said. "If you help us, we'll make sure you have a place in the new order that comes after this war. If you don't..." "If I don't, you'll kill me," Zixthera finished. "Actually, no. If you don't help us, we'll send you back to your fleet with completely accurate information about our capabilities. We'll let you warn them about exactly what they're flying into." Zixthera stared at her. "That would ruin your entire plan." "Maybe. Or maybe your commanders won't believe you. After all, you'd be contradicting 40 years of intelligence reports. You'd be claiming that a primitive species somehow developed technology that surpasses the mighty hegemony. How likely do you think they are to take that seriously?" Dr. Chen was right, and they both knew it. The hegemony's arrogance was so complete that they would never believe humans could pose a real threat. Even with accurate intelligence, they would probably dismiss it as impossible. "There is a third option," Dr. Chen continued. "You could help us end this without massive bloodshed. Help us convince your fleet to surrender when they see what they're really facing." Zixthera looked out the window at the construction bays, where humans and aliens worked side by side, building a defense force that would soon face the full might of the hegemony war machine. "What exactly are you asking me to do?" Dr. Chen smiled. "Help us teach your people the same lesson you've learned, that sometimes the species you think is primitive turns out to be the one that's been ahead of you all along." Zixthera spent 3 days learning about the true scope of humanity's preparations. Dr. Chen personally guided them through facilities that existed in secret beneath major cities around the world. Each location revealed new surprises that challenged everything the hegemony believed about human capabilities. In a hidden base beneath Tokyo, humans had constructed massive shipyards where vessels larger than hegemony dreadnoughts were being assembled. The ships used a hybrid design that combined the best elements from dozens of different alien technologies, improved by human engineering principles that Zixthera didn't fully understand. "How did you advance so quickly?" Zixthera asked as they watched human technicians installing weapon systems that seemed to bend space itself. "Necessity," Dr. Chen replied. "When you know a more advanced civilization is planning to invade you, it tends to focus your efforts. Also, humans have always been good at taking existing ideas and making them better." She showed Zixthera a quantum processing core that had started as a captured hegemony design, but now operated at speeds that made hegemony computers look like primitive calculators. "Your people designed this to process information in parallel, quantum states," she explained. "But you limited it to binary operations because that's how your mathematics work. Humans use base 10 mathematics, which allowed us to expand the processing matrix to decimal quantum states. The result is a 1,000-fold increase in computational power. The implications were staggering. If humans could improve hegemony technology that dramatically, what else had they accomplished?" The answer came during their visit to a research station hidden beneath the Australian desert. Here, human scientists worked with representatives from the Galactic Resistance, species that had either successfully fought off hegemony invasions or escaped before their worlds could be conquered. The Resistance has been waiting for someone like humanity for centuries, explained Vorthak, a insectoid being whose species had lost their homeworld to the hegemony 50 years earlier. Most species develop either military strength or technological innovation, but rarely both. Humans have managed to combine aggressive tactics with rapid technological adaptation. Zixthera met with resistance fighters from a dozen different species. Each one had a story about failed attempts to unite against the hegemony. The problem was always the same. Species were too different to cooperate effectively, or too proud to share their most advanced technologies. Humans are different, said Krelon, a crystalline being whose people lived in exile after their world was strip-mined by hegemony forces. They see our differences as advantages rather than obstacles. They don't want to conquer us or absorb us. They want to work with us. Dr. Chen showed Zixthera the proof of this cooperation. Human ships equipped with Zilani armor plating and Korth quantum drives. Vex gravity manipulation systems improved with human engineering precision. Resistance fighters training alongside human soldiers, learning tactics that combine the best strategies from multiple civilizations. Your invasion fleet is expecting to face a single primitive species, Dr. Chen said. Instead, they'll be fighting a united force that represents the combined knowledge and anger of everyone the hegemony has ever wronged. But the most shocking revelation came when Dr. Chen brought Zixthera to meet the project's real leaders. Zixthera had assumed that Dr. Chen was in charge, but she was just one part of a much larger organization. The meeting took place in a conference room that could have been in any human office building. Around the table sat beings from multiple species, but they weren't prisoners or refugees. They were leaders, each one representing a different aspect of the resistance operation. "Welcome," said a human woman who introduced herself as Director Morrison. "Dr. Chen tells us you're considering joining our cause." Beside her sat Commander Thexadar, a hegemony defector whose people had joined the resistance after witnessing atrocities committed by their own military. Across the table was Admiral Yethona, whose aquatic species had been among the first to be conquered by the hegemony, but had maintained an underground resistance movement for over a century. "We know this is difficult for you," Commander Thexadar said, speaking in perfect hegemony standard language. "I faced the same choice 5 years ago when I realized what my people had become." "What convinced you to defect?" Zixthera asked. "Truth," the commander replied. "The hegemony teaches that they bring order and civilization to primitive worlds, but I saw what really happened on conquered planets. Entire populations enslaved or eliminated. Resources stripped away while native populations starved. Cultures destroyed simply because they were different." Admiral Yethona activated a holographic display that showed star charts spanning most of the known galaxy. Red markers indicated worlds under hegemony control. Yellow markers showed worlds that had successfully resisted invasion. Blue markers represented worlds like Earth, targets that the hegemony planned to conquer. "The red zones are expanding," the Admiral said. "Every year, more worlds fall to hegemony forces. But here, for the first time, we have a real chance to stop them." She zoomed in on the Sol system, showing the deployment of human defense forces. The scope was enormous. Battle stations disguised as asteroids. Weapon platforms hidden throughout the outer planets. Ships positioned at strategic points that would allow them to attack the hegemony fleet from multiple directions. "Your invasion force expects to find a single inhabited planet with primitive defenses," Director Morrison explained. "Instead, they're flying into a system-wide trap that we've been 40 years preparing. But we don't want to just defeat this invasion," Dr. Chen added. "We want to send a message to every hegemony world that resistance is possible, that the age of easy conquest is over." Zixthera studied the battle plans with growing amazement. The humans had thought of everything. Multiple fallback positions in case the first line of defense failed. Psychological warfare designed to demoralize hegemony forces. Even contingency plans for capturing hegemony ships intact so their crews could see the truth about Earth's capabilities. "What do you need from me?" Zixthera asked. "Access to your invasion fleet's communication systems," Commander Thexadar replied. "We need someone inside who can coordinate with our forces and provide real-time intelligence about hegemony tactical decisions. Also, Dr. Chen added. We need you to help us understand hegemony psychology. We want to end this war quickly, with minimal casualties on both sides. That means convincing your people to surrender, rather than fighting to the death, Zixthera thought about their fellow hegemony citizens serving in the invasion fleet. Most of them were good people, who genuinely believed they were bringing civilization to primitive worlds. They had no idea they were about to face an enemy that was more advanced and better prepared than anything in hegemony military history. The invasion fleet won't surrender easily, Zixthera warned. Hegemony military doctrine says that retreat is acceptable, but surrender is shameful. Most commanders would rather die than admit defeat to a supposedly primitive species. Then, we'll have to make sure they understand exactly what they're facing, Director Morrison said. That's where you come in. When the battle begins, we need someone who can speak to the fleet commanders in terms they'll understand. Someone who can explain that this isn't a defeat. It's a revelation. Over the following days, Zixthera worked with human strategists to develop a communication plan. They would send coded messages to the invasion fleet, providing tactical information that would help minimize casualties while demonstrating human technological superiority. But the more Zixthera learned about human capabilities, the more they wondered if any demonstration would be enough. The humans hadn't just matched hegemony technology. They had surpassed it in almost every area. Their ships were faster, their weapons more powerful, their defenses more sophisticated. Are you sure you want to limit casualties? Zixthera asked Dr. Chen during one of their planning sessions. You could probably destroy the entire invasion fleet before they have a chance to fire a shot. We could, Dr. Chen agreed. But that wouldn't serve our long-term goals. We're not trying to become the new hegemony. We're trying to build something better, a galaxy where different species can coexist peacefully. You think that's possible? I think it's necessary. The alternative is endless war as more species develop the capability to resist hegemony expansion. Better to create a new system now, while we have the advantage. Zixthera realized that this was perhaps the most revolutionary thing about humanity. They weren't just technologically advanced, they were philosophically different. Instead of using their superior capabilities to dominate others, they wanted to create a partnership. The invasion fleet was now only weeks away from Earth. Soon, Zixthera would have to return to their people and help spring the trap that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. But first, they had to find a way to save as many lives as possible when two civilizations collided in the space around a small blue planet that had learned to fight back. The extraction ship arrived exactly on schedule, hidden behind Jupiter's largest moon, just as Zixthera's original mission plan had specified. Dr. Chen accompanied them to the pickup point, using a human stealth shuttle that was invisible to both hegemony and human sensors. Remember, she said as they approached the rendezvous coordinates, you're still supposed to be the same loyal scout who was sent here 3 months ago. Don't give them any reason to suspect you've changed sides. Zixthera nodded, adjusting their biomimetic suit back to its original hegemony configuration. After months of living among humans, their natural form felt strange and uncomfortable. The communication codes are embedded in your suit's memory core, Dr. Chen continued. They'll activate automatically when you're within range of the invasion fleet. Use them carefully. We only get one chance at this. The extraction ship detected their approach and extended a docking tube. Through the transparent walls, Zixthera could see their pickup crew, 3 hegemony soldiers who looked exactly like they had expected to find a routine scout extraction. Good luck, Dr. Chen said quietly. And remember, no matter what happens, you're not alone in this. We have other assets in place. Zixthera transferred to the extraction ship, playing their role perfectly. They submitted to the standard decontamination procedures and answered routine questions about their mission with carefully prepared responses. Any complications during the assignment? Asked Commander Vectar, the extraction team leader. None, Zixthera replied. The humans remain as primitive as previous reports indicated. I have detailed intelligence on their military capabilities and industrial capacity. The journey to the invasion fleet took 6 days. During that time, Zixthera filed false reports that confirmed human weakness while secretly studying the fleet's composition and battle plans. What they saw made their decision to help humanity feel even more justified. The hegemony had assembled nearly 1,000 warships for this invasion, enough firepower to reduce Earth's surface to molten slag within hours. The fleet commanders weren't planning a conquest. They were planning an extermination. The humans have shown signs of technological curiosity, Admiral Korath explained during the mission briefing. Rather than risk them developing dangerous capabilities, we've decided on immediate pacification followed by complete population replacement. Zixthara kept their expression neutral while mentally noting every detail of the battle plan. The Admiral was planning to position the fleet in a standard attack formation that would make them vulnerable to the crossfire attacks that humanity had prepared. "What about survivors?" asked Captain Zenthara. "Standard protocol allows for preservation of useful specimens." "Not this time," Admiral Korath replied. "Intelligence suggests humans have an unusual capacity for resistance and adaptation. Complete elimination is the safest option." The casual discussion of genocide made Zixthera's stomach turn. These weren't military commanders planning a strategic operation. They were talking about murdering an entire species simply because humans might someday become inconvenient. Over the next few days, Zixthera used their access to fleet communications to gather intelligence that would be crucial for humanity's defense. Ship positions, weapon capabilities, command structures, and tactical doctrines. All of it was transmitted back to Earth using the hidden communication system Dr. Chen had provided. But Zixthera also began identifying potential allies within the fleet. Not everyone was enthusiastic about the mission. Many junior officers expressed private doubts about the necessity of completely destroying human civilization. A few senior commanders seemed uncomfortable with the genocide order, but followed it anyway out of military discipline. Commander Thexadar had been right when they said many hegemony personnel were good people caught in a bad system. The trick would be finding a way to reach them when the battle began. 3 days before the fleet reached Earth, Zixthera made contact with Lieutenant Pexandra, a young communications officer who had expressed doubts about the mission during an off-duty conversation. "May I speak freely?" Zixthera asked during a chance encounter in the ship's common area. "Of course," Pexandra replied, though they looked nervous about the question. "Do you ever wonder if our intelligence about human capabilities might be incomplete?" Pexandra glanced around to make sure no one else was listening. "Sometimes. The reports from different scouts have been remarkably consistent. Almost too consistent, if you know what I mean." "What do you mean?" "In 40 years of observation, not a single scout reported any significant technological advancement. That's unusual for a species that was already showing signs of rapid development when we first discovered them." Zixthera felt a surge of hope. Pexandra was already suspicious. They just needed someone to confirm their doubts. "What would you do if you discovered the intelligence was wrong?" Zixthera asked carefully. "I would report it immediately," Pexandra said. Then after a pause, "But I would also hope that someone in command would have the wisdom to reconsider our approach." That evening, Zixthera sent a coded message to Earth. "Secondary asset identified. Recommend contingency plan Theta." The reply came back within hours. "Confirmed. Initiate when ready." Contingency plan Theta involved revealing limited truth to selected hegemony personnel who might be willing to help prevent unnecessary casualties. It was risky. If the wrong person learned about it, Zixthera would be executed as a traitor. But the alternative was watching thousands of good soldiers die in a battle they couldn't win. Zixthera arranged another private meeting with Pexandra, this time in an unused storage compartment where their conversation couldn't be monitored. "I need to show you something," Zixthera said, activating a hidden data pad that Dr. Chen had provided. "But first, I need your word that you'll hear me out completely before making any decisions." Pexandra nodded, though they looked increasingly nervous. The datapad displayed real-time sensor readings from the fleet's long-range detection systems. But these readings had been processed through algorithms that the humans had developed to reveal information that standard hegemony sensors missed. "Look at this," Zixthera said, pointing to what appeared to be empty space around Earth. Pexandra studied the display for several minutes before their eyes widened in shock. Those are ships, hundreds of them. But how are they hiding from our sensors? Stealth technology more advanced than anything we possess, Zixthera replied. The humans aren't primitive. They've been deliberately concealing their true capabilities. That's impossible. Our scouts would have detected. Our scouts have been compromised for decades. Every report we've received has been carefully crafted to make us underestimate human capabilities. Zixthera showed Pexandra more evidence, tactical analyses that revealed the trap waiting for the hegemony fleet, technological assessments that proved human equipment was superior to hegemony standard, and intelligence reports from resistance fighters who had been working with humanity for years. Why are you showing me this? Pexandra asked quietly. Because in 2 days this fleet is going to fly into a battle it cannot win. Most of these ships will be destroyed, and most of their crews will die, for no reason other than the arrogance of our commanders. What do you want me to do? Help me save as many lives as possible. When the battle begins, there will be opportunities to coordinate with human forces to minimize casualties, but we need people in the right positions to make it work. Pexandra was quiet for a long time, processing everything they had learned. Finally, they looked up at Zixthera. How many others know about this? A few. Enough to make a difference, but not enough to stop the battle entirely. And you're certain about the human capabilities? I've seen them with my own eyes. They're not just more advanced than we thought. They're more advanced than we are. Pexandra made their decision. What do you need me to do? Over the next day, Zixthera carefully recruited 3 more allies within the fleet. Each one was someone who had expressed doubts about the mission or shown signs of independent thinking. They created a small network of personnel who would be in key positions when the battle began. Their plan was simple, but dangerous. When the hegemony fleet arrived at Earth and discovered the trap waiting for them, Zixthera's allies would work to establish communication with human forces. They would provide targeting information to help humans disable ships rather than destroying them, and they would help coordinate surrender procedures for vessels that wanted to avoid unnecessary destruction. The night before the fleet reached Earth, Zixthera sent their final coded message to Dr. Chen. Assets in place. Ready to proceed. See you on the other side. The reply was brief but encouraging. Good luck. Remember, we're fighting for something better than what came before. As Zixthera prepared for what would either be the salvation or destruction of their people, they reflected on how much they had changed since arriving on Earth. They had started as a loyal scout gathering intelligence for a conquest. Now they were a double agent working to prevent a massacre and build a better future for the galaxy. Tomorrow the hegemony would learn that sometimes the prey turns out to be the predator, and Zixthera would be there to help both sides find a. The hegemony invasion fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, expecting to find a single defended planet and perhaps a few primitive orbital stations. Instead, Admiral Korath's sensors immediately detected massive energy signatures throughout the system. What am I looking at? The Admiral demanded as his tactical display filled with contact markers. Unknown, sir, replied the sensor operator, his voice tight with confusion. I'm reading nearly 2,000 vessels of unknown configuration. They appear to be waiting for us. Zixthera stood at their assigned position on the command bridge, watching the Admiral's confidence crumble as the true scope of Earth's defenses became clear. Hidden battle stations revealed themselves throughout the asteroid belt. Ships emerged from behind planets and moons where they had been lying in wait. The supposedly primitive human civilization had turned their entire solar system into a fortress. This is impossible, Admiral Korath whispered. The intelligence reports said, The intelligence reports were wrong, sir, Zixthera said quietly. The humans have been preparing for this invasion for 40 years. Every head on the bridge turned toward them. Admiral Korath's face showed confusion, then suspicion, then growing rage. Explain yourself, Scout. The humans captured and turned our previous scouts decades ago. Every report we've received has been carefully crafted to make us underestimate their capabilities. Zixthera activated their hidden communication device, knowing this would either save lives or get them killed. They know we're coming. They know our tactics. And they've prepared accordingly. Admiral Korath reached for his sidearm, but before he could draw it, the main communications array activated. A human voice filled the bridge, speaking perfect hegemony standard language. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force, addressing the hegemony invasion fleet. You are outnumbered, outgunned, and surrounded. We offer you one opportunity to withdraw peacefully and avoid unnecessary bloodshed." The Admiral's hand froze on his weapon. Around the bridge, hegemony officers stared at their displays in shock as more details of the human fleet became clear. The enemy ships were larger than hegemony dreadnoughts, armed with weapons that their sensors couldn't fully analyze, and positioned with tactical precision that demonstrated intimate knowledge of hegemony battle doctrine. "This is Admiral Korath of the Hegemony 4th Conquest Fleet," he replied, his voice steady despite the circumstances. "We do not negotiate with primitive species. Surrender your planet immediately or face the consequences." The human response came immediately, and it wasn't words. Every human ship in the system simultaneously fired a single warning shot into empty space. The energy signatures were overwhelming. Each shot contained more destructive power than a full hegemony battleship broadside. "Those were warning shots," Admiral Chen's voice continued. "The next ones won't be. You have 10 minutes to begin withdrawal procedures." Admiral Korath cut the communication and turned to his tactical officer. "Battle stations, prepare for assault formation. We'll show these primitives what hegemony military superiority means." "Sir," Zixthara said urgently, "I strongly advise against attacking. Our fleet cannot win this battle." "Silence," the Admiral snapped. "Guards, arrest this scout for treason." But as the security guards moved toward Zixthara, Lieutenant Pexandra spoke up from the communication station. "Admiral, I'm receiving surrender requests from 17 ships in the fleet. Their captains are asking for permission to withdraw." "Denied," Admiral Korath shouted. "Any ship that attempts to withdraw will be fired upon as deserters." That's when Zixthara activated the final part of their plan. The hidden communication system Dr. Chen had installed didn't just allow them to send messages to Earth, it also let them broadcast on hegemony fleet frequencies. "This is Scout Unit 7749 to all ships," they announced over the fleet-wide communication system. "I have spent 3 months observing human capabilities. They are not primitive. They possess technology that surpasses our own. This invasion cannot succeed." Chaos erupted across the fleet as ship captains demanded confirmation and junior officers questioned their orders. Admiral Korath drew his weapon and aimed it at Zixthara, but before he could fire, the tactical display lit up with incoming missiles. The human attack began with surgical precision. Instead of trying to destroy hegemony, the humans targeted specific systems, weapons arrays, engines, and communication equipment. Ships found themselves disabled but intact, their crews unharmed but helpless. Admiral Korath fired his weapon at Zixthara, but the energy beam was absorbed by a personal shield generator that Dr. Chen had provided. The technology was decades ahead of anything in the hegemony arsenal. "How?" the Admiral gasped. "The humans shared it with me," Zixthara replied. "Along with many other technologies, they've been offering to share their advances with any species willing to work with them peacefully." On the tactical display, the battle was already over. Human ships moved through the hegemony formation like sharks through a school of fish, disabling vessels faster than the fleet could respond. Advanced targeting systems allowed them to knock out specific ship systems without harming the crews inside. Lieutenant Pexandra activated the communication system again. "This is Lieutenant Pexandra to Admiral Chen. Several ships in our fleet wish to surrender and discuss terms for peaceful withdrawal." "Understood, Lieutenant. We're transmitting coordinates for ships that wish to surrender. Any vessel that powers down its weapons and follows those coordinates will be treated with full military honors." Admiral Korath made one last desperate attempt to maintain control. "All ships ignore those coordinates. Prepare for ramming attack on the nearest enemy vessels." But his orders were being countermanded across the fleet. Ship captains who could see the hopelessness of their situation were choosing survival over pride. Within an hour, nearly half the invasion fleet had surrendered. The remaining ships found themselves surrounded by human vessels that could have destroyed them at any time but chose instead to wait for surrender. "Admiral," Zixthera said quietly, "it's over. The humans have won. But they're offering us something the hegemony never offers to defeated enemies: mercy." Admiral Korath looked around his bridge at officers who had lost faith in his leadership, and at tactical displays that showed the complete failure of his invasion. Slowly, he holstered his weapon. "All ships," he said into the communication system, "stand down and prepare for surrender negotiations." 3 days later, Zixthera found themselves in a conference room aboard a human space station, participating in the most unusual peace negotiations in galactic history. Instead of demanding tribute or territory, the humans were offering technology-sharing agreements and mutual defense pacts. Admiral Chen, who had somehow managed to be both the scientist who had recruited Zixthera and the military commander who had defeated the invasion, led the human negotiating team. "We're not interested in conquest," she explained to the assembled hegemony officers. "We want to build a new kind of galactic community based on cooperation rather than domination." Admiral Korath, who had been stripped of command but allowed to participate in the negotiations, seemed genuinely puzzled by the human approach. "You defeated our fleet completely," he said. "By right of conquest, you could demand anything. Why are you offering partnership instead?" "Because conquest creates enemies," Admiral Chen replied. "Partnership creates allies. We'd rather have friends than subjects." The negotiations continued for weeks, but the basic framework was established quickly. The hegemony would withdraw from all recently conquered territories and enter into a mutual non-aggression pact with Earth and its allies. In exchange, humanity would share selected technologies and provide assistance to any hegemony worlds that wanted to transition to a more cooperative form of government. Zixthera was offered a choice of remaining with Earth as a liaison officer or returning to hegemony space to help implement the new agreements. They chose to stay with Earth, but not before filing their final report to Hegemony Command. Final intelligence. Assessment from Scout Unit 7749, they transmitted. "Previous reports were incorrect. The humans are not primitive. They are the most advanced species we have encountered, not just technologically but philosophically. They have created something that the hegemony never imagined possible. A civilization that becomes stronger by helping others rather than conquering them. They knew we were coming long before we arrived. They knew our tactics, our technology, and our weaknesses. But instead of using that knowledge to destroy us, they used it to teach us a better way. The humans know more than they admit. They know that the future belongs to cooperation, not conquest. And now, thanks to their example, so do we." The report was transmitted throughout hegemony space, where it sparked revolutions on dozens of worlds. Species that had been forced into the hegemony began demanding independence. Hegemony military units began defecting to join the growing Galactic Cooperation Alliance that Earth had founded. Within a year, the hegemony as a conquering empire had ceased to exist. In its place, a new galactic civilization emerged, one based on the radical human idea that different species could work together as equals rather than rulers and subjects.